Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, YouTube's post-traumatic parenting expert. I'm here with my special guest, Peter Rabbit, to talk about parenting complex kids as a post-traumatic parent and why parenting complex kids can, in and of itself, be an aspect of trauma. I call that parenting Peter Rabbit. When you're parenting a kid who's just very different from the expectations of what kids are supposed to be or supposed to do. Perhaps your child's been labeled as twice exceptional. Perhaps your child's been labeled as neurodiverse. Perhaps your child's been labeled with some pejorative labels like temper tantrums, anger management problems, oppositional, right? Or I've even gotten kids who are labeled things like behavioral or issuatic, which are both, not things. All humans are behavioral because all humans have behavior. But that being said, it can be really hard to parent a kid who's twice exceptional, neurodiverse, or been labeled as oppositional. So let's talk about how and why and what to do. So, hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. If you like this kind of content, if parenting Peter Rabbit is something you're doing right now, click subscribe below so you never miss another episode. If you've ever wondered to yourself, wait a minute, maybe my kid is acting this way because of me. Maybe I don't know how to do this whole parenting thing right. Maybe my trauma is traumatizing my children. Maybe my damage is damaging them. Then welcome. You're in the right place. Because today we're going to talk about parenting Peter Rabbit. I am the parent of a Peter Rabbit, so I know what that's about. So the Peter Rabbit stories are books from England from the Victorian era, and they're about this rabbit family, and there's Mama Rabbit, and she has these four little bunnies. She is raising Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who are good little bunnies and who go down the lane to gather blackberries. And in other stories, we see Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail sitting very obediently next to Mama Rabbit, stitching their samplers and drinking their tea and doing what good little bunnies do. And then there's Peter. Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden. Mom had warned Peter, don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Mr. McGregor is the one who killed your father. Your father went to Mr. McGregor's garden to steal some carrots, and Mr. McGregor got him with his garden rake. So sounds like Mama Bunny is a post-traumatic parent, right? She's been through something. She lost her husband. So Peter is being naughty. So he goes into Mr. McGregor's garden and he gets into all sorts of trouble. He almost gets caught. He almost gets killed by a rake. He almost gets stuck in a net that's used to capture birds. He loses his jacket. He gets doused in cold water. He gets sick. And then he comes home and he has to go straight to bed without any supper and drink his chamomile tea. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail get to eat bread and jam and drink tea with Mama Rabbit. Now, here's the thing. Most people are parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontails. And it's very easy to parent Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail because Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail are the bunnies who do what they're supposed to do. And very often, when you're the Mama Rabbit of a Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, you think, oh, I'm such a wonderful mom. I got this parenting thing down pat. Like, give your kids some fun activities to do. You read them bedtime stories. You cook a yummy meal. You lay out their clothes the night before. I got this. And you think like, wow, I'm a great mom. And maybe when you're parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, you see those other moms in the grocery store and their kids are having meltdowns. And you think things to yourself, hopefully you don't say it out loud. You think things to yourself like, oh, my kids would never do that. You just have to set some limits and tell them what you expect of them. And then they do what they're told, right? And you think it's because you're a good mom. It's because you're parenting Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. I've had this story so many times. Recently, I was at a school play for my first grader, and the kids were all performing on the stage. And there was one kid who the kids were all sitting on chairs, on little chairs, and they were singing songs. And when it was somebody's turn to sing, she stood up on her chair and she sang her song, and then they sat back down. One kid turned her chair so that it wasn't facing the audience. And at one point she slid under the chair. And at one point she ran off the stage. And at one point she yelled something at the teacher. And I saw her mother and I was thinking, oh, you are parenting a Peter Rabbit and you're probably feeling lousy about yourself. I didn't have the opportunity to say something to her, but I, in my years of parenting Peter Rabbits, because I've parented plenty of Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontails, and I've parented some Peters. And when you parent Peter Rabbit, you're that mom that everybody is looking at, and that mom that everybody's like, oh, well, my child doesn't act that way. You just won the genetic lottery. Someone gave you a Flopsy, Mopsy, and a Cottontail. You're lucky. It's great. It's fabulous. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail are great kids. And I'm not saying it's not hard to parent any kid, but don't judge someone who's parenting Peter Rabbit. Because if you're parenting Peter Rabbit, you're in the parenting Olympics right now. You're not in the regular, beginner leagues. If think of it as skiing, it's like you take a beginner and you don't put them on the bunny slopes, you put them on the triple black diamond slopes. That's what parenting Peter Rabbit is like. It means you're put straight into the Olympics. And I promise you, no matter how good a weekend warrior you are, and no matter how athletic you are in your neighborhood league, someone puts you into the Olympics, you are going to flounder because you do not know how to play at that level. So when you are parenting Peter Rabbit, congratulations, I guess, you're in the Olympics. But don't self-blame and self-shame and gaslight yourself and say, oh, maybe it's my trauma causing all of this. I just don't know how to parent. I don't know how to set limits. I don't know how to be gentle enough or responsive enough or kind enough. Oh, I'm not giving them enough toys. Oh, I didn't eat enough kale when I was pregnant. You're parenting Peter Rabbit. That's what's going on right now. And it's very challenging to parent Peter Rabbit. Parenting Peter Rabbit is in and of itself a trauma because you thought you were in the regular neighborhood leagues and you were like playing a weekend Little League game. You thought you were like, yeah, going to do some beginner stuff. You didn't know that you were going to be thrust directly into the Olympics. I remember the years that one of my kids was struggling in school, and I realized the extent to which it takes a toll on my nervous system and how my PTSD can be activated simply by the fact of being Peter Rabbit's mother. I was, this was when I had a treadmill with one of those heart straps that tells you your heart rate. And I was getting ready to start running on my treadmill. So I had just strapped on that heart meter and I was about to step onto the treadmill. And all of a sudden my phone rings and it's my son's school. And my heart rate went from, 55 beats a minute to 160, like that. Like my blood pressure probably shot up through the roof because that's what it's like to parent Peter Rabbit. Like there, I was watching on the screen of that treadmill, I was watching a panic attack. I was watching a flashback, an emotional flashback start, and I could see it like documented. Like there's my heart rate spiking, and like the treadmill started like flashing if your heart rate was going too high, and it was like flashing the danger signs. As it turns out, there was a bus form that needed to be signed, no problem, all good. But yeah, parenting Peter Rabbit is in and of itself an instance of trauma. Not because you don't love your kid, not because you're not thrilled to be their parent and thrilled because the nice thing about parenting a twice exceptional child is that they're twice exceptional. The nice thing about parenting a neurodiverse child is they have a really unique outlook on the world and they can really accomplish things that are stellar and amazing, and they can really be, every human has incredible worth and incredible potential that can be unlocked. And yes, sometimes we get a lot of messages about our neurodiverse kids that they don't, that they have challenges. They get labeled oppositional and difficult. And like I said, the one I keep getting, is kids like kind of behavioral. Like I get these referrals. And I just always laugh at that because all humans are behavioral because a human cannot do nothing. And the minute you're doing something, even if it's sitting or breathing or being or living, you are behavioral, right? So, but I know what the school means when they say this kid is behavioral. It means we're dealing with a Peter Rabbit. So the parent is getting a lot of messages about this child and their potential and the challenges that they're going to have in life. Maybe you're watching your child suffer. All the other kids are socially ostracizing him or bullying him. All the other girls are making fun of her and telling her that she's not feminine enough, or telling her that she's weird or she's off. And she makes them uncomfortable, and it's just so painful. The kid has, is like, graduate level when it comes to like chemistry and physics, but is struggling with reading comprehension on the third grade level, but they're in fifth grade. So like, how do you even find a school placement that works, right? There are so many challenging situations when it comes to raising Peter Rabbits. We're allowed to acknowledge the struggle. We're allowed to say, yeah, this is hard. This is making demands on me as a parent that I just didn't expect and I don't know how to deal with. And when you're a post-traumatic parent and you're parenting Peter Rabbit, it's double as hard, because a lot of post-traumatic parents have these beliefs about their basic competence as humans. Like, I don't know how to be a human, let alone how to parent a human. I don't know, that line that I very often say, adulting is hard if you never childed. So yeah, adulting is hard if you never childed. So parenting a Peter Rabbit when adulting is already hard can be really difficult. It's hard to parent a Peter Rabbit when you have this wonderful model of secure attachment, and you have this wonderful model of, how to parent because you've seen it modeled to you, and now you just have to sort of modify that. It's another whole thing to parent Peter Rabbit when you yourself don't have secure attachment, because it's harder to provide secure attachment to Peter Rabbit. Peter can be very unpredictable, and sometimes it's a little harder to provide him with secure, stable delight, that connection, that attunement. Sometimes when you're trying to provide Peter with attunement, Peter's like up and down and up and down and up and down, and he's just not paying attention to you. So you want to have that experience, like, I'm going to read you a bedtime story, and you're Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail. And maybe if that was your first kid, so Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail are going to sit and they're going to just nicely listen to that story, and it's going to be like such a lovely, cozy moment. Peter's jumping, and he's bouncing, and he's wiggling, and you can't even connect sometimes. It's so hard. You can learn how to connect, but it's so much harder. So if there's an attachment wound in mom already, so she has some ideas about not being able to parent so well, about basic competence, that's going to be even harder. When you're parenting a Peter Rabbit, and Peter Rabbit is really pushing all your buttons, and it's triggering emotional flashbacks. Maybe Peter Rabbit has when you're parenting Peter, and Peter has meltdowns all over the place, and Peter just does not comply and does not listen. And the anger, right? Peter's anger, Peter yelling at you. You say, Peter, come here, we're leaving Target now. And he's like, no! And that reminds you of the rages that your father had, or that reminds you of the scary people in your neighborhood when you were growing up. So you sort of get into this emotional flashback of like, I withdraw from people who are loud and aggressive, or I lash back out at people who are loud and aggressive, right? There's a lot of ways that can happen. And then you're like, wait, this is my 5-year-old. I don't want to be lashing out at my 5-year-old. I love this kid. I would literally give up my life for this kid. But right now, I just want to lash out. Or right now, I just want to dissociate and freeze him out and not even notice him, because that's my go-to methodology for what I do when people are angry around me. So when you're parenting Peter Rabbit, it's not Peter Rabbit's fault, but when you're parenting Peter Rabbit and Peter Rabbit is triggering some of your past trauma and making you think about, oh my gosh, when I'm around angry people, I people please. So I need to give him everything he wants. But wait, what about setting limits? People are saying I'm spoiling him. And that gets so confusing. In and of itself, that self-doubt as a parent is traumatic. It's really hard. You love this kid. Sometimes you know this kid is suffering. When they're having a meltdown in public, they're suffering. When they're having when they're yelling at you or refusing to connect with you, you know that they're suffering, and you know your child's suffering, but you doubt your competence to handle it, really, really scary. What I want you to do if you're parenting a Peter Rabbit is, number one, put your hand on your heart and say to yourself, I am a good parent. My damage is not going to damage my children. In fact, my damage is what's going to protect my children because I'm going to parent them responsibly. The promise we make to Peter Rabbit is, now that I get this, Peter, now that I get it, I'm going to parent you the way Peter gets parented, not the way Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail gets parented. And if that means people are going to give me the side eye or judge, or the school's going to be mad, or people are going to think I'm indulging him because I'm doing all these, extracurriculars and, other things. I'm not making certain demands on him, like he doesn't have to come to the family holiday party, because I understand how to parent a Peter Rabbit. And if you want more resources on precisely how to parent a Peter Rabbit, there are some videos here in this YouTube channel. I have videos about teaching kids about their emotions. I have videos about toys that you can use if you're parenting a Peter Rabbit to help them learn how to handle emotions. I call that toy hacking. I have articles on my Psychology Today blog. My Psychology Today blog is called Targeted Parenting. You can find it at psychologytoday.com. I have a lot of articles on how one parents a Peter Rabbit. So you can check that out. On Instagram at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology, we have a Subscriber Sunday, and that's where post-traumatic parents can post their questions. And over the week, I respond to them so that everybody gets to learn from each other's questions. It's only for subscribers. And if you want to know exactly how to parent a Peter Rabbit, how I learned how to parent my own Peter Rabbit, those resources and that information is out there. But you have to parent yourself first before you can parent Peter Rabbit. So you need to promise Peter Rabbit that you're going to do the work, that you're going to break the cycle, that you're going to really do post-traumatic parenting work, so that when you're parenting Peter Rabbit, you're parenting him with presence. You're parenting him with a true understanding of what your parenting values are and what you're doing to facilitate this child's growth. But yes, parenting Peter Rabbit in and of itself is an instance of trauma, not because you don't love Peter Rabbit, but because of everything else it brings up in you. If you like this content, please do me a favor, subscribe below, like, save, and share. Let your friends know that there's help out there. The post-traumatic parenting community has grown one parent at a time, telling another parent about it. This book that I would have needed 20 years ago when I became a mom is going to be out there in the world next year in January of 2025 because of the support of the post-traumatic parenting community. So welcome to the community, and I cannot wait to hear your questions. Please comment below with any questions you have, or you can DM me on Instagram at Dr. Kozlowitz Psychology. If you want longer form, like audio interviews with experts, check out the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time.